It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. And we're live at Capital One Arena, where we are hoping not to see history tonight, Anthony. Well, Anthony's in a very fancy sweatsuit back in our usual studios. And I'm at Capital One Arena, where I'm hoping not to see history tonight, Anthony. Last year, the Washington Wizards set their franchise record losing streak. They lost 16 games. That wasn't very fun. Guess how many they've lost in a row right now, Anthony?
15.
That's correct. They've lost 15 straight games. So can the Wizards end the losing streak tonight? Seems like a tall task. In their last game, the already banged-up Wizards lost 3 more players to injuries during the game. We'll see if those guys play tonight. Keyshawn George, Corey Kispert both sprained their ankles. Brogdon's banged up. Kuz is banged up. Yeah, all them dudes are banged up. So we're going to talk about the game a little bit later with Dave Johnson, as we always do, and kind of the state of the team. And then we're also going to get Josh Robbins to pop by in about 90 minutes. So Josh is going to go to the press conference downstairs with Brian Keefe, because he is the Athletics Wizards beat reporter, and that's his job. And then he's going to come up here and he's going to talk to us about this basketball team and see what's going on. I will say this feels like as good a time to announce as any. I didn't know if I was going to announce this, and I probably won't mention it a ton until it's done, but I am scheduled as of right now to talk to Michael Winger next week for a long sit-down interview. So we're going to try to get some more insight into this rebuild, because obviously right now the deconstruction phase is not very fun. Involves a lot of losing. But I do think it is part of the process, and I do think this is, as bad as it has been, is a bit a part of the plan. And to the extent that the results matter right now, they don't actually. And so if the results don't matter in the current state of the rebuild in terms of wins and losses, like how much does it really matter if you lose 15 straight or lose 12 straight or what? Like, I want Michael Winger to have to answer those questions because I think you, the fans, owe it. And in my preliminary discussions with Michael over the last year and a half, I have talked to him a little bit about this, and he wants to be as transparent as he can be with the fans. Like, there's obviously stuff where he might not want to answer certain questions about specific players and certain plans, but I think that'll be a fun discussion to have to try to get insight into this process, which will, in the long term, yield results, or they're going to have to start it over with new people because that's just the reality of the NBA. Ultimately, you are trying to compete, and it is really, really hard to rebuild. But, you know, it can be painful, but then if you do it right, the dividends are you compete for a decade. You get the right guys. If they wind up with Cooper Flagg, and Cooper Flagg is what everyone thinks Cooper Flagg is going to be, and Keyshawn George is a good starter, and Alex Sarr is a great defensive piece, and Bub Carrington can ball, then like they're going to be really good for a long time, and it will be worth it. If they miss on the next draft pick or don't get lottery luck or whatever, like this is going to look really stupid. But they're going all in. I appreciate that. I like what they're doing. It just doesn't really make me want to watch the basketball team a whole ton right now. Of course, Anthony, you know what it does make me want to do?
Scream?
No, listen on the radio, of course. You should listen on the radio on the Team 980. They have a radio party for every game.
They do.
I don't know if you've heard that.
They do.
Yeah.
Dave Johnson?
Yeah, Glenn Consor.
Yep.
Brian Albin's there sometimes.
Yep.
Chris is on the post game. Shoot, Anthony. Sometimes I show up.
About to say Craig too.
I've not done a broadcast with him this year. Maybe that's the problem.
Ooh, the broadcasts you've done, have they won?
No, I actually have a terrible record. I had a record last year of getting 50 points dropped on by the star player. I think the Giannis and the AD 50-point games, I think I called the first half of both of those.
So maybe we need to keep you as far. I'm joking.
I was like, maybe I don't. We had the curse of Haney.
Yeah. Well,
Has it shifted?
That was a thing. That was a thing. Yes. Yes.
Do I need to? It was broken last time you were in this building.
Yeah.
Did you leave it here on accident?
Is it me?
I don't. You haven't been to a Wizards game yet this year. Maybe you need to come and break the streak.
Yeah, that's possibly what needs to happen.
Or maybe, Anthony, maybe we don't have any control over the results of a basketball game that we don't play in.
I like the way you think, Craig.
Yeah, that's probably correct. Speaking of rebuilds, we are going to do a Take Command mailbag on Tuesday because typically Tuesday is our tape review show, and we don't have a game to break down. So that makes it pretty hard to do a tape review show. So, like every good podcast, when we have an open spot in the schedule, what do? We do a mailbag. And what I think was interesting, Anthony, and what I want to take calls on here in just a minute, is the idea that when we asked for mailbag questions, most of the questions were about off-season stuff or moving forward. Right now, the Commanders, I think it's per CBS's analytics, I think that was the graphic I saw on Instagram earlier today, have like an 82% chance to make the playoffs. They're 8-5. And like I don't think in Baltimore right now, also 8-5, by the way, I don't think they're talking about off-season changes. Like I think they're like, what can we do right now to maximize our chances this year to win the Super Bowl, to win a playoff game, to be as good as we possibly can be. I don't think in Detroit right now, Green Bay even right now. Maybe Green Bay is a better one. Detroit's multiple years into their rebuild. I would say at this point they're not even rebuilding. Well, I don't even say they were ever rebuilding because they didn't have anything to get back to. They were just building because the Lions have been terrible forever. But the Packers, for instance, are a really young team. I don't know that Sports Talk Radio Milwaukee and any Packers shows from around the internet. I don't know that they're thinking about off season like in the back of their heads. But if they were to do a podcast mailbag or a radio show mailbag right now, I don't know that they're getting off season questions. And I think it's pretty interesting that so many of the questions that we've gotten so far are off-season adjacent. Anthony's currently fighting a light right now.
Yeah. I think...
Speak to me from the darkness, Anthony.
I think a lot of people are just... I think we're rushing the process to an extent in terms of like, as opposed to taking it all in, seeing where we end up. Granted, I personally don't believe we have a championship roster, but I think we could possibly win a game depending on who we play in the playoffs. But I don't think we'll go far. And I think people are just anxious to see what our championship window looks like next year, the year after that, and how we can rebuild around what we already have, because we have the pieces. We have a left tackle. We have a quarterback. We have a head coach and an offensive coordinator that seems to be, having this offense put up numbers and things of that nature. So we can fill the holes that we have right now. I think a lot of people are just in love with what could happen, and they want to rush it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's rushing it, right? Because it's about the future. But by the same token, it's like maybe, hey, what would they need to do to win a playoff game this year? Is that possible? Like, what's your biggest concern? What do you feel really good about? Like, that's actually the way I'm going to frame our conversation with Dan Pizzuta at 4:30 today. I'm going to say, all right, offensively, what do you feel really good about for the Commanders? What's your biggest concern? Defensively, same question. And then we'll talk a little bit about a banger of a Thursday night football game tonight with Dan when he joins us at 4:30. But I think that should be more pressing than like, and maybe even some of the re-signings. I'll give people that. We've gotten some questions. Who would you re-sign? Because that is some stuff you could do now. If you wanted to, like I was joking a couple weeks ago, it was like Jeremy Chin was playing so well, he should have had a contract extension waiting for him in his locker after the game. I think he missed a couple coverages after that, so my bad. I'll take the jinx on that one. But like, there's a couple of guys that, I would absolutely be wanting to bring back, and so those are maybe a little bit more because you could technically do some of those deals now and just lock that in, and like a bye week would actually be an interesting time to do it. And I get that on the bye week you zoom out too. You take inventory, and I think that I will also give credence to the fact that a lot of times when we talk about this team, and we both, you and I on this show, and Logan and I on Take Command, we talk about some of the talent deficiencies as being the biggest obstacle. So people are then, okay, well, how do we fix a talent deficiency? But I just think it's interesting that so many of the questions are not even about the current pieces that are here. It's about what could be in the future of pieces that are not here, whether it's draft or a lot of free agency questions. So I'm curious. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. How much of your focus is on the future right now with this team, and how much of it is on truly just diving in full bore to the rest of the season while knowing there is a bright future in theory ahead? 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show, taking your calls next on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Quick housekeeping before we get to some calls and phone lines. We got more than a few open. 301-230-0980 on. If you're already looking forward to the offseason, I think it's worth mentioning too, Anthony, that like the transactions in the NFL and the NBA have become as popular as the games. The NFL, I think, is still more skewed towards the games. Baseball has had this for a long time where like hot stove and obviously the trade deadline was a huge part of the season. And in baseball, it makes sense with the trade deadline, especially because that's when the pennant races then really heat up in August and then, September. And so there's that final push. And I guess that's true in all the leagues, but you'd have the buyers and sellers and the length of the season and the whole deal. The season is just so long that it's like, okay, lock in, trade deadline. Now we're paying attention if our team is in it. And the NBA has always been super duper transaction based. So many people love the trades, and you have people spend time on the trade machine on ESPN.com, and free agency, this, whatever. And the team building is such an integral part of it and an intricate part of it. And then in the NFL, I feel like that's happened more and more as trades become more popular. Obviously, the league itself with what it does around free agency and the NFL networks, free agent frenzy, and all that kind of stuff. It has been big. So I do think that there's just a natural inclination for a lot of fans to look towards the offseason. But when you're in the middle, like the whole thing about the offseason is you're building for right now. So the fact that, we put out an APB for mailbag questions and people are like, offseason. And I'm like, wait a minute. We've done the offseason thing forever. We haven't been good in forever. Can we talk about the good? So we'll get back to your calls on that in a moment. 301-230-0980. But I did just get an Amazon update, Anthony, that's relevant to the show. So yesterday on Competition Wednesday, I had to spin the wheel for a couple weeks ago when I lost, and I got a costume show. Which we actually we didn't change it on the wheel, but we changed it in reality. It's a costume segment or segments. And you were going to wear like the Groucho Marx mustache, glasses, nose bit on the show, which you can watch on the YouTube stream or catch later on demand. And Anthony got 100 push-ups, but because our show was short yesterday, we didn't have time to do the 100 push-ups, and Anthony wasn't feeling great, so we didn't want to make him do 100 push-ups. And so I was like, how about you also do the show, and we're just going to look like, instead of me looking like an idiot during a segment, we can both look like idiots and call it even. And Anthony's like, cool. So, fingers crossed, we'll have these by tomorrow. Amazon said that our order has shipped. It will be, I sent one to Anthony's house and one to my house. So I'll be doing the show from my house tomorrow. So I have a bit of a bigger window. But you need to have this package with you by the time you leave. Otherwise, we're going to have to push it off. And so it says it'll arrive by Friday, December 6th, but by 10 p.m. So that would not work to wear it for our NFL picks tomorrow if it arrives after our show starts or after you leave.
Yeah. Something to monitor.
Yeah, definitely going to keep an eye on it. Tracking number, hit that the little linkage.
Yeah,
check it.
I'm pretty sure, like at Prep though, they deliver 12, 1. Typically, that's when Amazon comes. So hopefully, they deliver it.
Fingers crossed.
I'll be checking.
Yeah, what time do you think you'll head out?
So the latest I'll leave Prep is 2:30. The latest.
Oh, that's real late.
That is late. But I make sure I get down here on time.
Yeah, being at work on time. If we have to wear them for like our Around the NFL segment on Monday or something, we can.
Yeah.
Or even Competition Wednesday next week.
Okay.
So if they don't get there. But I do think like a Friday Around the NFL, making our picks, I feel like that's the right segment to do it.
Yeah.
For the wheel of mediocre punishment, that feels like the correct amount of mediocre.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. If I get mine, I will put it on. I will take a picture. I'll put it in my story at Hoffman.sports on Instagram, and you can see me looking like a doofus. And then watch if you typically listen to the show. We love people listening. Obviously, radio, Odyssey app, whatever. But if you want to see this one, you can do it. I actually don't normally put our NFL picks on demand on YouTube, Anthony. I feel like I should, and just without context.
Yeah, this one will be good.
Yeah, so we might have to do that. Radio show picks Week 14 in the NFL, dressed like idiots. That should do well in the algorithm. Okay. Do you have any calls, Anthony?
We do not, but I started looking at the future. Some 2025.
Wait, you're the person. You're the one who's actually submitting the questions, is what you're telling me.
I was looking at some of the 2025 NFL free agent rankings and players projected to be in free agency anyway.
Screw it. Hit me with them.
So, number one, we have T. Higgins. And I think everybody's going to be excited about that one.
Here's the thing. Everybody wants T. Higgins, but I think it's kind of and I don't not want T. Higgins, to be clear. But people are also just extraordinarily biased to names that they know, which the point of Adam Peters existing is he knows everybody. And here's the one thing I will say about T. Higgins is, you know why T. Higgins is going to be available? Because they already paid Jamar Chase.
Yep.
And so what you would essentially be doing, because I think they'll probably re-up Terry this offseason as well, are you going to just then pay 2 receivers and be in a bit of a logjam there? Now, that's not the worst idea because you have 4 more years of Jaden under team control, rookie level team control. 3 years at the really low number, and then 1 year at a 5th-year option, which is bargain quarterback shop, backup level money, not starter money. And then there's a very good chance, based off how he's played, that you will make him the highest paid player in football. Because that's the reality of if you're the next guy up and you're a true top flight quarterback, Jaden Daniels 3.5 years from now is probably, and I don't even know if they'll do 5th-year option. They might just go ahead and extend him. Because sometimes that's how that goes. The financial responsibility or the financially responsible thing would probably be to 5th-year option him. But then you also, I guess, do risk him getting 1 year closer to free agency and a franchise tag, and you don't want to take off your QB. And frankly, you're better off just paying the dude earlier anyway. I think especially a guy like Jaden who came out a little bit older. Point is that's a many years from now discussion. So if you are going to take advantage of that, and you know that Terry's money can get off the books by the time you need to pay Jaden, because Terry's 30, you're not going to pay him till he's 38. You're going to pay him another 3 years, maybe, probably 2 plus a team option and a potential restructure down the line. So I do think you could pursue T. Higgins. I think the question you have to ask is that the best use of your money? They have a ton of money, so I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I think people love the sexy name, and that's why everyone's like, T. Higgins, Commanders. And he also does fit from the bigger X receiver that I think that you look to pair with Terry. But he does a bunch of injury stuff this year, which doesn't make me feel great inside.
Yeah, I mean, just considering everybody, saying wide receiver, tackle, DB, I was just looking at some of those names. But some of the other receivers that are going to be in free agency, you got Stephon Diggs, you got Amari Cooper, you have
no and no for me on those two.
Yeah. Who else? DeAndre Hopkins.
That would be interesting. At the right price.
Okay.
I do think we've talked about this a little bit with Terry and Zach Ertz this year. Yeah. Terry's never had an older dude around him. And getting a dude like Nuke, who's a pro and who obviously knows Cliff, knows the system, I don't think he's a diva wide receiver at all. And I think he also realizes probably where he is in his career, which is part of the reason he probably went to Kansas City. If he thinks he can come in and Cliff signs off on it, he's yeah, I love that dude. I want him to come in. Could he be a veteran? 1 year deal, but I'm not anti 1 year, $10 million for Nuke Hopkins potential. If depending on how he finishes out this year, but he's helped Kansas City. He's still good.
Yeah, definitely. That's all the receivers, and I want to hit on 2 tackles real quick.
Okay.
They have Garrett Bowles, tackle out in Denver.
Didn't he just get paid? How old's this list that you're looking at?
This list is about a week.
Oh, maybe not.
2
Maybe they're
weeks.
going to pay him. He's not leaving Denver.
And then you got Ronnie Stanley from Baltimore.
I'm fine with Coleman staying at left tackle.
Oh, no, I love it too.
I think that's like we've gotten some of that on Take Command mailbags question submissions of like, hey, could they just kick Coleman back inside to guard and get someone else? I'm like, why? He's good. Like, he's better than Sua Matia in Kansas City. That dude's been a bust.
Definitely.
And like, people were losing their minds because they passed on him and then it took Coleman later. So like, yeah, I'm fine with that. I think the one to watch is right tackle. Whether that's draft or free agency, I think that Wiley's a fine player. I've probably said nicer things about Andrew Wiley than anybody else in town, not named Logan. But like, he's a fine player. You can upgrade there. But I also think the other thing with him is, or just like the tackle position in general is, to me, tackles come in the draft. Guards tend to slip through the cracks into free agency. Like, you can find a really good guard in free agency because teams have to make tough decisions and they choose the tackles and the centers and other positions over the guards. And so occasionally some of those guys, like Robert Hunt, who went and got a bunch of money in Carolina last offseason, like, he's a really good player, like a Pro Bowl caliber type of player. It is rare that Pro Bowl caliber players make free agency. And so that's why also, like when we talked about off the top of the show yesterday, where the hole that Rivera left them in is so significant is because the place that you get your Pro Bowlers, and you can only get so many at a time because you have so many draft picks and there's only so many guys that come out and they take time to cook. You're buying raw ingredients. 4 years in a row, you just threw food right in the trash. So excellent stuff there. So they'll supplement in free agency, but this team is going to be built through the draft, and that obviously has not changed. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Dan Pizzuta, 33rd team, stops by for his weekly visit. What is something he feels really good about the Commanders' offense and defense, and then what's something he's really concerned about for each side of the ball for Washington? We'll ask him next on the Team 980. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 if you want to check us out there. And don't forget, if you miss any part of the show, you can check it out on demand anytime, anywhere within 24 hours on the Odyssey app using the rewind feature or by checking out the Hoffman Show podcast wherever it is you listen to yours. Right now, it is time to welcome in our friend Dan Pizzuta from the 33rd Team for his weekly spot with us here on the Team 980. Dan, what's up, dude? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well. So here's what I want to do with you today on the Commanders front, and then I want to get into this Thursday night game that we have tonight because it's a good one for once. Love that. And both teams are actually on full rest, so it'll be real football, not crap football. But on the Commanders front, I would like to go through the offense and the defense, and I want to try to say, all right, we're at the bye. What's one thing that you feel really confident in and one thing that you're really worried about on both sides of the ball for Washington? So let's start on the offense. And what is one thing about the Washington Commanders offense that through 13 games at 8-5 going into their bye this weekend, you feel really good about for the final stretch of the regular season?
You know what? This is going to be a much different answer than it would have been if we did not have last week's game. And I think the one thing I feel good about is there does appear to be some change-ups that they have going on. They kind of went into that Tennessee game and did change some of the offensive game plan, gave some different looks. We had, Terry McLaurin lining up on the right side of the field. Jaden Daniels looked healthy again. He was scrambling, which we talked about. He hadn't been doing the past couple of games. So the fact that they were able to, even before the bye, have a small amount of change-ups. It wasn't a huge change in what they did, just schematically, but there just were, a couple of things that made some things easier. The fact that they were able to do that in the game before the bye does give me a little more confidence that there is going to be some more changes coming through the end of the season after the bye too. And I think that's one thing that we really worried about for this offense this kind of entire season, especially these past couple of weeks. So the fact that it's there right now, I think it does give me a little more confidence going into the next couple of games once they come after the bye.
So to flush that point out a little bit more, when you watch the best offenses around the league, how much are they tweaking and how often are they tweaking? Because like you said, there wasn't some dramatic change-up of what they have done and who they have been. They made small tweaks that made a huge difference. How do the best offenses in the league do that, both in terms of kind of, I don't want to say like put an exact percent on it, but I don't know how else you try to do it, and then with what frequency?
Yeah, I think it's a little different with what, Washington and, Cliff specifically does, because so much of what Washington does is they're running a lot of the same stuff. But they're going to use like a lot of speed to do it. So they're running a lot of the same plays. And so a lot of the other defenses in the league will kind of dress up what they do. And it'll still be the same things, but it looks a little different. I think one of the things with Cliff is that there's, not a lot of motion and things, and it's still very static, is defenses that kind of sit on what they kind of their main plays. So I think it is a little different between how some of the, other offenses in the league kind of dress up what they want to do and how a kind of Cliff Kingsbury offense does. So I think the fact that there was a little more in this, where you did have someone, McLaurin going over to the right side, they were running some more like under center play action too. So just the fact that there were just a couple more things, I think it is a little different in the way that like we'll see like a Green Bay right now is probably going to run like the same kind of split zone run that they like to do, except it's going to look in 9 different ways they can get into it. It's a little different than what Washington does.
Okay, so then if we flip the question here, what is the number one thing that worries you about Washington's offense over the final stretch of the regular season and presumably, hopefully, fingers crossed, into the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of going to be on the injury front, where I think you're looking at, Eckler is going to be, looks like, out for a while, and I think you're just going to be a little worried about Jaden Daniels a little bit and that rib. The fact that he was able to scramble a little more, he looked comfortable and willing to scramble. But if he does, have some injuries and that does take out that part of his game, I think we kind of saw how that limits some of the passing offense and some of the creativity that they can have inside and outside of structure. So if that is something that, comes up and maybe lingers a little more, or if there's, another injury that pops up, I think that just kind of having him be able to have that full range of what he's able to do with his movement and everything. I think, that was one of the concerns you kind of had from him coming into the season as he was a draft prospect. And he just kind of saw that over the past couple of weeks. So if he can stay healthy, that's going to be awesome. If he does get a little banged up and some of that explosiveness and some of the athleticism that he has that is such a dangerous weapon isn't able to be used at its, top ability, that kind of does hamper that offense a little bit.
Dan Pizzuta, writer, 33rd Team, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Okay, so this question might be, I don't say more interesting, I don't know. We'll see what it is. It's the same question, but on the defense. The thing you're most confident in the Commanders' defense as they head into the final month of the regular season is?
I think just the fact that they are pretty stout up front, and this run defense has been really good. Right now they're fourth in success rate against the run among all teams. So the fact that they are able to kind of hold up and have some of these very good run fits that they just are kind of being able to do in terms of just having, that structure in place and being fundamentally sound in there. And I think that goes along the defensive line, that goes along, the linebackers too, the way they're able to fit the run. The fact that the fundamentals are there is something that is definitely very encouraging to see for this group specifically, and just kind of Washington in general, because we've talked about it plenty over the season. That is not something that has been there necessarily for a Washington defense in previous years.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you also see, at times they've given up some big ones in the run, but down in, down out, they're pretty good, like you said, with the success rate stat. But if other teams can't get off a higher play volume because the Commanders' offense controls the ball, it can get really sideways, such as the Tennessee game, the Carolina game, the Arizona game earlier this year. There's a distinct formula that they have. That said, if that formula is not working, we can see this defense face some real struggles. So what is the thing that worries you the most for Washington's defense the rest of the year?
I'm pretty interested just to see what this secondary is going to look like once Marshawn Lattimore still comes in. And he was playing at a very high level when he was playing in New Orleans. So the fact that once he's healthy, and he should be after the bye, he slides into the outside. How does that mix and match kind of what Washington has been able to do and have some success with so far? Are you going to be, moving Sancho around a little more? Are you still going to be trying to mix and match who the second outside corner is? So how they kind of gel over the next couple games, I'm going to be very interested to see that, because I think it does have a high ceiling, but I think it could also, have some high variability while they're trying to figure out maybe what that best kind of match of three guys is, because they play nickel so often. I think that we could, see some up and downs just while they try to figure out what the best personnel is going to be over the last couple games of the regular season.
Dan Pizzuta, 33rd Team, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Okay, tonight, Dan, we have this incredible matchup on Thursday Night Football, the Lions and the Packers. Both teams look like they're in the play. I mean, obviously, they are in the playoff picture right now. Lions trying to fight off the Eagles for the 1 seed. Packers somehow third in their division, despite the fact that they're 9-3. Both teams not on short rest because they both played on Thanksgiving. Here we are a week later. What to you is the most important thing, the number one thing that you're watching that you think will decide this matchup tonight?
I think it's going to be what Green Bay is going to be able to do, kind of like we were talking about, some of their run stuff and what they can do out of that, especially because of how hampered Detroit is on the defensive side. I think if you look at what Detroit was running out on the defensive line in week one of the regular season, I think one of those players right now is playing. That's Owen McNeil, who has been great, but a lot of what Detroit's been able to do on both sides of the ball is kind of controlling that line of scrimmage. So the fact that the Packers have a very fun, diverse run game where they can be doing a lot of cool things with Josh Jacobs. You have Jaden Reed, who can be taking the ball. If they're able to get that ground game going, and those are some real chunks there, and then you have Jordan Love, who's able to kind of get some chunk plays out of, some of the play action and all of those things. If Detroit can't really get the penetration and win with their defensive line, I think that defense might be in for a longer game than they have been used to so far this season, just because, so many injuries depleting kind of what they have been successful with coming out. And even, since Aiden Hutchinson went down, we kind of thought that was going to be a huge thing that shifted how good Detroit's defense can be. They've still been one of the best defenses in the league since Hutchinson went down, but there are so many injuries outside of that that I think that's going to be real interesting to see exactly what their changeup is and what their plan of attack is, just because they're so just kind of run down at that spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough task for Aaron Glenn just to get a bunch of guys who know the calls, nevertheless are prepared for all the things that Green Bay can throw at Detroit. That's the Amazon Prime game tonight, so very much looking forward to that. Dan, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
That is Dan Pizzuta with us here on the Hoffman Show. He's with us every Thursday on the Team 980. Our schedule looks a little bit topsy-turvy today as we're live at Capital One Arena at 5 p.m. Normally, it is not my beat, top story of the day. That's going to be 5:30 today because Josh Robbins is going to join us live on set here at Cap One to talk about the Wizards trying to avoid a franchise record-tying 16th straight loss. So Robbins, 5:30. Dave Johnson will be by as well after the doors open at 6:15. And then coming up at 5 o'clock, normally what we do at 5:30 on Thursdays is never read the comments. So we'll do that at 5 o'clock. But next, the college football playoff. We're almost done, championship weekend, and then we'll have our first 12-team playoff. And there are a lot of fan bases that are really upset. And I think that's great. I'll explain why next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Again, you can hit us on Instagram as well at Hoffman.sports. Again, that is Hoffman.sports. All right, so the college football playoff has a lot of people really mad. And it caused some consternation in the Hoffman household, by the way, Anthony, this weekend, because my cousin, Ben, who lives here in D.C., he's a Miami grad.
Ooh,
and so when Miami lost to Syracuse, I was just basically like, sorry, because I don't really care that much. So I wasn't even a bad sport about it. I wasn't like rubbing it in his face, anything like that. I was just like, I'm so sorry about what we just did to you. I'm really happy our coach is going to go take a shower.
Yeah, that's all I was thinking about. Fran Brown taking a shower, not having to go without.
Be a bad person.
Yeah.
If you don't shower and smell in public or in your own home, if you live with other people, if you live by yourself, do whatever you want. That's between you, your cleanliness, and whatever higher power you believe in, and your dermatologist. But if you live with other people, that's between you and them, and that's not very nice. But I felt bad about that. I was like, dang. And then sure enough, the rankings don't go Miami's way, and it looks like they're going to be on the outside looking in, barring a bizarre set of results this weekend. But what is beautiful about what is happening now, Anthony, is that it kind of doesn't matter. And I mean that in a genuinely good way. Because I want you to think back all the way, Anthony, to the BCS days. You remember them?
Gracious, yes.
It took you a second, though, right? You're like, wait, what? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Remember how many teams they used to do with the BCS? The BCS National Championship game?
Were there two?
Two.
Yeah.
Two. So there was a couple of seasons where teams finished with basically the exact same records. And even at times, I think there was one year, I want to say the team was Auburn that got screwed. 3 teams finished undefeated. And they're left out. Imagine going undefeated, and if I have my years right and my teams right, it was Auburn, which means they went undefeated in the SEC in like 2006 or something like that, 2004. Any college football fan is probably yelling at the radio right now. It was 2000. I didn't look this up in the break. I should have. My bad. But undefeated in the SEC, you literally couldn't do anything else except for, I guess, by win by more, and you're left out of the national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
That's terrible. And even with 4, there was 5 conference champions that were Power 5 plus Notre Dame. And, if Notre Dame goes undefeated, like, their schedule is hard enough that, like, fine. Them having that legacy kind of access, you can debate that till the cows come home. But, like, you could have 5 you're going to have a conference champion every single year that's left out by nature of 4 versus 5. If you're the University of Miami and you feel like you got screwed this year, I get it. I'd also tell you should have beat Syracuse. If you're Alabama and you wind up getting left out of this thing, depending on how some results go this weekend, although they're in good shape at the moment, I would tell you that you should have won more games. And that's kind of the point. And by the way, could we see a 12 seed, an 11 seed win the national championship in college football? We could. And especially if, I feel like most guys that are top prospects, if their team is in the playoff, are going to play. It's not like the other bowl games where these dudes are going to sit out. Because at that point, like, okay, cool, I'll get the gift pack, but I'm not going to risk getting hurt right before the NFL draft. If you're playing for a championship, it's a different story. But could we see a 12 seed? Sure. Team underperformed earlier in the year. They kind of found their stride. They come on strong late. They're hot going into the playoff. They've really found out how to play. Maybe they made a substitution. Maybe their quarterback was replaced, and they're just a better team now than they were earlier in the year. Sure. But chances are the champion's going to come out of the top 4, 5, 6. And especially if we say it's about the top 6, that team used to not make it. And so that's the thing about, like, why I think the playoff now, and if you had gone to 8, I think you'd have the same thing. 8 or 12 is fine with me. Once you get more than that, it's like, what? Come on. I know there's a lot of teams in college football, but, like, are we really going the cream of the crop at this point? How many games do we want to add here? But the point of moving it from 4 to 12 was never to eliminate the idea that someone was going to feel screwed. That's impossible. The NCAA tournament has 68 freaking teams. And there are teams every year that rightfully sometimes feel screwed. Those teams aren't winning a national championship. So at the end of the day, it sucks because they lose out on money, they lose out on experience, they lose out on a cool trip. If you're a student at that university, like I remember what it was like to go to Syracuse games when we made the tournament. It was awesome. I also, frankly, remember how it feels to be left out because my first 2 years of college, I was at Middle Tennessee State, and our women got left out my freshman year, and that was ridiculous. That hurt. That sucked because I was ready to go to wherever they were going to go. And I was like, I guess I'm not going anymore. Guess we're going to the WNIT. Whee! Right? But what are you really griping over at that point? It sucks for those people, but like we're not going to miss out on the champion. We're not taking a deserving team that is going to be fighting for a title and leaving them out. That's what the change in the college football playoff is designed to eliminate. And guess what, Anthony? It's working. And so does that make it any less frustrating if you're a Miami fan? No. But you should have beaten Syracuse. And I'm not saying that because I'm an Orange alum. I'm saying that because that is what I would tell you if you lost to any other team as well.
Yeah, I'm loving what the whole college football playoff is. And this season especially has been fun to watch just because there's no number one team. There's no dominant team. We don't have 4 undefeateds this year where we have to, talk about who's more deserving. I think it's playing out how it should play out, and I think whoever ends up getting in, deservedly so. Those teams that are going to be on the outside looking in, Alabama, you shouldn't have lost to Vanderbilt. Like you just said, Miami, you shouldn't have lost to Syracuse. Like, we're unranked. Like, you're number 4 in the country. So I think if you really wanted to make your case, you should have made your case by winning more games.
You have a chance to make your
no
case
excuse.
on the field. And there's never going to be a scenario where a team will say, we made our case on the field and we still got left out.
Yep.
And that's they can say we made a case, but it's not like you're going to have a team that's undefeated that gets left out.
Yep.
That's just not going to happen. Even if it's a low major conference team, as long as we have as long as those conferences still exist, they'll still get ranked like 11th. So legitimate champion contenders are not going to be left out, and that should be the point of this. So in that particular case, job well done, and we still get the drama and the consternation of college football fans yelling at each other, and who would ever want to eliminate that? It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, it is time for a little segment we call Never Read the Comments. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. And it is, and by the way, we're live at Capital One Arena, which is a relevant piece of information for so many reasons. One, hey, we're live at Capital One Arena. So if you want to come by and say hi, if you're coming to the Wizards game tonight, we're sitting right outside section 106 and 107. So you can come say what's up. Or I'm sitting here. Metal Chris is here. We got some of our guys here as well. We got our guy Tyrone here. Thank you. And we're gonna be here until the show's over, and then we're gonna go home, or we're gonna stay and watch the game. The game is the Wizards' attempt to avoid a franchise record 16-game losing streak that would tie the record they set all the way back in last season. So we're here for that. It's also relevant because we're going to move Not My Beat today to 5:30 because that's when Josh Robbins can come up here from downstairs where he is right now awaiting Brian Keefe's pregame press conference. So Robbins at 5:30. Right now, what we normally do at 5:30 on Thursdays, which is this.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen. Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, so here's how this works if you are new to the show. We stream live on YouTube every single day, all 3 hours, or however long the show is on that given day, at the Team 980. We also chop up the show into all the different segments, and we put those segments, or many of them, available on demand at Craig Hoffman, which is my page, or at the Team 980. We then scope through all the comments and see which ones we want to respond to here on the radio, and then typically we put this segment up, and it's just a giant self-fulfilling content factory. That's really what this is. No, it's a great time. It's a good chance to interact with everybody, and it's a chance to respond to these comments a little bit longer than just the reply that we get on YouTube. This one was funny. Anthony, ready for our amuse-bouche of the day?
Uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah, we always start with one just to kind of get the palate wet, just to make us feel alive. At GibbsFan19, Dear ChatGPT, insert comment here for never read the comments about RFK Stadium and fighter jets. Will Craig roast or praise this comment? Tune in on the next NRTC. That's pretty funny.
What in they went to Chat GPT for that?
Well, I think the joke is that they should go because
Okay.
they know that we respond to the ones we really like or we really don't like. So kind of the joke about the content factory, they're like, hey, can we get mentioned and have it come true? And I appreciate the humor. So Gibbs fan 19, salute. Well done. All right, two big topics on this week's Never Read the Comments based off of segments that we did earlier this week. One is where we started the show yesterday, where Emmanuel Forbes got released on Saturday, and we talked about just how big the hole is that Ron Rivera left for Adam Peters and Dan Quinn to dig out of. And at Cy12 says, I'm a little conflicted on Forbes. I know he wasn't living up to being a high pick, but why not work with him and coach him up? I get the feeling this is more about culture and making a statement and making an example of someone. So I get why they did it, but I'm not sure they should just be throwing away talent they can possibly mold. At least with Dotson, they pulled off a great trade. And the Mathis thing is disappointing because he's really flashed on some plays. His bull rush is definitely stronger than the Bama boys, but I get the feeling he doesn't have a big motor and probably doesn't practice hard as Quinn would like. So I think this is an interesting comment, Anthony, to respond to and to talk about because I think it's a genuinely interesting topic and framing, which is that this is somehow personal to Emmanuel Forbes and kind of a shot across the bow to anybody else on the roster, like, hey, you better do things our way. And I actually don't think that's correct. I actually think that, like, they evaluated it based off the merits. They don't think Emmanuel Forbes is that good. Because it's not like they think that this team is loaded at corner. They traded for Marshawn Lattimore because they knew they needed help. They're playing Mike Sainer still outside when they've stated multiple times. Joe Witt's actually pulled this back because they're like, I don't know, maybe he is an outside corner. But like, I think it's pretty clear in an ideal universe, ideal world, ideal football operation, they want Sainer still inside. So I don't think this is about, oh, they could have coached him up. I think they tried to coach him up, and he didn't take to the coaching, which might not be 100% on Forbes. Maybe the way they coach isn't for him. Maybe the things they're asking him to do are things that he's not very good at, and the things that he'll be asked to do with the Rams where he got claimed are things he's good at. Maybe they'll use him differently. But they play man here. They play zone here. He didn't play either of them particularly well. They ask you to be physical. He at times refused and at times failed. He tried and failed. He didn't try and failed. And the lack of consistency in effort and the lack of consistency of production, like they've been trying to mold this dude since they got him in April. Like since the first practice, the first meeting. They know he's a first-round pick. And by the way, this is Dan Quinn and Joe Witt. Anthony, do Dan Quinn and Joe Witt like anything more than a ball-hawking corner?
They love him.
They love a ball-hawking corner.
Can't get enough of them.
They take any kind, like Deron Bland, we'll turn you into the best ball hawk in the league.
Man, what?
Yeah, Trayvon Diggs, like you're a mid-round pick. Your brother plays wide receiver, but we think you can catch too. Like, they love that kind of player. Forbes actually ain't that guy. He was in college, but it's not happening for him in the NFL. And so, did they try to trade him at the deadline? Probably. Does the way Michael Davis has come on as of late make this easier? Yeah, because for a while he was the next guy on the depth chart. Davis outplayed him in practice. And he, by the way, only played 8 snaps on Sunday, but he hit a couple of them. He popped, coming down hard, trying to punch the ball out against the run. Okay, great. Forbes ain't that guy. And same thing for Darian Mathis. Like, what do they need to go with Deron Payne and Jazon Newton? They need a big dude who stuffs the run. And that's what Big Phil's supposed to be. He hadn't been good enough at it, which is why they're like, hey, actually, it was a competitive decision. Like, Dan Quinn did not shy away from this question. He was trying to be nice about it and professional about it, but he answered the question brutally honestly. Carl Davis and Phil Mathis have been splitting reps in practice, and Carl Davis's reps are better, is essentially what he said. He said it was a competitive choice that he made as a coach. This isn't about sending a message. This isn't about making a point. This is about picking the best players that they think are going to help this team win right now. And they think the guys they picked are better than Emmanuel Forbes and Phil Mathis. And I think they're right. Not that these guys are the long-term solutions necessarily, but I think that this isn't about some, like, messaging thing. These are people of substance. Ron did messaging stuff. That's part of the reason why his picks were terrible. He wasn't actually good at the substance of the job. These guys are. And I think that shows in these decisions.
It definitely is, man. Definitely is.
All right. Moving forward on this topic, in terms of the hole that Ron left Adam Peters in, Chris Hall, 90-27. 2023 draft was so awful. No idea how you take Forbes over Gonzalez. And Ron had also told Brian Branch he'd take him and then didn't. Both have worked out nicely, respectively. That's the worst case of the yips I've ever heard of. I can't imagine what he's like on the putting greens. I don't know, but Ron's got plenty of time to practice putting now.
Yeah, he does.
The Branch one, that one kills me. The Gonzalez one is so obvious because it's like for like. It's corner for corner. And God, Quinn with I think Forbes or Gonzalez would not have been enough to save Ron's job, to say the least. But God, if they had gotten Gonzalez. But, like, Branch, man, he's like, Chin has been really good, but, like, Branch is the ultra version of that. God, if they had that guy. And they took Quan in the next round.
Yeah, they did. Woo.
Call me Aurelius. Okay, Aurelius. Call me Aurelius says, how big is/was the hole? It's a 2-year hole, in my opinion. Is it bad? TBD, because so far they're doing really well for having new coaching and from being a 4-win team the previous year. Ron Rivera without a true GM was an atrocity. And then Marcel Jackson along the same lines. Marcel Jackson, 28-68, in case anyone was wondering. I don't think the team is in a big hole. Now, if they didn't hire Adam Peters and brought in someone who isn't really good at finding talent, then yeah, it would be bad. Yet, Adam has this team in a good position to be good for at least the next 3 years. 2 straight years with over $100 million in free agency, and the team has kept their draft picks and getting more value as well. I'll say this team is in great shape. I I don't think that because Adam Peters is good at his job, we should let Rivera off the hook, whatever that means. We should not let Rivera off the hook for how big the hole is. 4 straight years of failed first-rounders? Like, I'm sorry, if you shuffle the names in the first round and then let a monkey pick them, a monkey would literally do better. I chose a monkey, by the way, because they have opposable thumbs. I'm sure you could find a way to do it with a cat.
I'm crying.
Maybe that octopus that picked some games during the World Cup all them years ago?
Dogs, too.
Like, it is literally worse than just getting lucky to have fail on 4 straight first-round picks. That is truly horrendous. And that is a systemic failure at all levels. In who you selected, how you developed them, how you deployed them. Like, scouting, player development, coaching. Fail, fail, fail. All of it. It's so bad. And so just because Adam has been able to come in and say, all right, we have the resources to do it. Now, he's got to hit at an extraordinarily high level, and he seems to have done great in his first draft, but like he is a human. And just because he has the resources, part of the reason he has the resources is because of how badly Ron failed. They don't have to pay anybody. They haven't had to give Chase Young an extension or Jamin an extension. They didn't pay any of those guys. No wonder they have all this cap space. So, yes, they're in a good space to be able to fix it because of who they hired and because of the resources available. But even some of those resources are available because the failure was tremendous, and it is going to take a while. Like, that's the thing. Even if they do really well in next year's draft, the chances that you have someone playing so far above what you'd expect a rookie to play like Jaden is feels slim, especially later picking in the first round. So you have to get production from young guys quickly, but they're still young guys if you want it to be good. Like, that's the hole we're talking about. Long term, you're always a couple years away in the NFL if you pick well. If you are a team trying to compete right now, rookies only help you so much. So that I think also helps kind of describe how big the hole is that they're digging out of. All right. Other big topic was the name and branding side of things. Is obviously the Commanders hired Mark Klaus, the new team president, and so there was that. There's the RFK stuff that's in the news. All of that is leading to the comments that we got in plenty on our YouTube page at Craig Hoffman and at the team 980. First, we did a few segments on the branding specifically, and I do find it interesting overall that anything business-related is a chance for fans to say stuff about the name. It's kind of wild, actually, because we did some segments that were just on the stadium before the Klaus thing happened, before we talked about the branding, and it was purely on the RFK news, and that the comment sections would turn into logo and name stuff. So it's clear people care, which was kind of my point when I then talked about it once Klaus got hired. And I thought this comment from the Rake, @_the_Rake, really kind of captured that. Because he says, I know Craig and I are on opposite sides of this argument, but yes, I'm happy he's bringing it up, and I hope that he can at least help in getting the organization to listen to all of the fans on both sides and make an informed decision about what to do with the brand. And in case you missed it, one, of course, you can go watch it on YouTube or listen to it in our podcast feed. But the crux of my point was they need to put some finality on this topic as opposed to consistently saying there are more important things. I'm sorry, you're a multi-billion-dollar organization with a lot of resources invested and now new leadership. You have to do multiple things at once, and not letting this loom over the franchise, I think, is really, really important. Secondly, specific to the name, we got a lot of comments that the only name that was right, the only name that I would support the team was about 5 different names. Warriors, Red Wolves, the old name, Commanders, even. Like, hey, I don't want them doing another name change. That's the only option. So if that doesn't make it obvious and self-evident that there's no fix-all solution, I don't know what does. A couple of specific comments that I think are interesting. Jack Package 287 says, what people fail to realize is that the NFL does not want controversy hanging over the shield. The NFL doesn't want people protesting outside of every stadium Washington plays at by having protesters that then invites counter-protesters, and it's just a problem. Josh Harris is a businessman, first and foremost, and this is bad for business. The second thing is that people love throwing out all these replacement names: Warriors, Warhogs, Hogs, Red Wolves, Braves, etc. These names are all trademark names, and the owner of these names are going to want a king's ransom once they figure out an NFL team wants to purchase it. I believe Josh Harris would rather spend that money putting a better product on the field and creating a more enjoyable fan experience. I believe he stated that at his press conference when he purchased the team. What seriously blows my mind is how we finally have a top-tier quarterback, a competent coaching staff, a new owner, and our team is finally trending in a positive direction after 30 years of losing, and some fans still want to dwell on the past and nitpick everything about the Commanders' name. That's kind of mostly where I am. Do I think it's a great name? No. Is the best shortening of the name I can come up with the Mandos, and is that kind of tongue-in-cheek? Yeah. What I've been fine with it saying is Washington football team. Yeah, it's something unique. Sure. But I think what frustrates me is more than any specific name in any direction it wants to go, like, just say it's over. If you're not going to do it, say so. And I know that they wanted to get – I'm not necessarily complaining about the fact that they haven't done it yet. They've been in charge for like 18 months, if that. It was August. It's not even 16 months since Josh Harris signed on the dotted line and took over, and we had that big old party down at the bullpen, right? So if that's the case, like, okay, fine. But moving forward, once this new team president is in – I think within the next 16 months, the next 18 months, they should have finality on that. Either we are scrapping Command. They don't have to have it done, right? They could say we're scrapping Commanders, we're going to do the research, but a rebrand is coming, and we are going to announce it in 2027 or 2028 or whatever, right? You then run the risk that you win a Super Bowl as the Commanders because Jaden Daniels loses his mind and goes on a crazy playoff run, and that'd be sweet. And then you can have, add that one and it just be a nice little memento over at the park. Remember that short stretch of time we were called Commanders and won a Super Bowl? That's cool. But you could do that and say we're going to investigate it, but then you commit to changing the name. Or you just say, like, we're done here. We're not changing it. Please stop asking us. Move on. And I think that would probably just be the right play. It saves you a ton of money, a ton of time, a ton of resources, a ton of everything. And the better the team is, the more people are going to get over it because they're just going to realize they want to root for their good football team. That said, I think you also have this conundrum where there's no way to make everyone happy. Same guy at The Rake says, stadium aside, a rebrand is the number one thing I want Klaus to address. I will always root for the team, but I will never support the Commanders brand. That is, by the way, an intellectual disconnect that I don't really understand, but sure. I hate it. It's a lame, reused, failed USFL brand that doesn't elicit any excitement or passion. I would like it if they could bring back the old logo and change the name to Brave since it was our original name, was in our fight song, and has ties to our history. But if it's off the table, then go Red Wolves or something that we can get fired up about. If they stay Commanders, then stop all of this reference to our history. Get rid of the fight song. Stop with all of the Raise Hail slogans because none of that matters anymore. We need a clean slate. Like I said, I'll still root for the team, but they will not be getting any of my money if that's the course they choose. The part I want to underscore here is, one, I think it is a fair point. Like, hey, if you're going to move on to something else, then move on. But they're trying to, of course, walk this line of we're honoring the history, we're honoring the traditions, but we're moving on. But this fan says, hey, like, get rid of the fight song. We hate it. If you're not going to let us sing the version that we want, or you're going to pretend like that isn't the version that we want. But stop the Raise Hail slogans and stop the flags. Well, Mr. Swervon says, I would tell the team president to reach out to the Gonzo Did This and work on the branding. Our merchandise sucks even though we buy it. I buy it just to try and pump money into the team, but the branding needs a total overhaul. Those flags were great, though. So we got one person who's like, knock it off with the Raise Hail flags, and someone else who's like, hey, those flags were awesome. So, again, kind of hard to split the baby here. The lesson from the Bible, remember, was to not split the baby. Seth Stone _ill says, if old fans want to stay focused on the old name and logo, F them and let them stay mad. The history of the team isn't being erased, and neither is the legacy of the team. People just need BS to be mad about. They were losers with the name for the last 30-plus years, and they were losers with the yellow pants, but somehow nostalgia has these folks in a chokehold. Look, man, childhood nostalgia is a major thing. I don't know how deep I want to go here. There's people you can talk to about that, but I think it is really, really, like, I'm not going to dismiss people's childhood memories. I'm not going to dismiss the idea that people were really, really happy about the memories they have with their families going to games at RFK and the winning in the yellow pants and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that, like, if you're going to be an adult to talk about this, you have to acknowledge that that team name had a lot of L's over 30 years. And that for an entire generation, if they still even like the team, they have no good memories outside of maybe a couple RG3 games in 2012 tied to that name. Moving forward is actually something that a lot of people do want to do, and it is heavily divided by age. And to at least be adult enough to acknowledge that, I think, gets you a seat at the table. And if you don't, and you just want to scream about your own thing and think that your worldview and your opinion on this is the only one that exists on the planet, then I'm really not that interested in hearing from you. All right, last but not least, Anthony, bring you back in here for a couple fun ones at the end, because that's how this works. We start with an appetizer, we get the meat of the comments, and then we end with a little dessert. First of all, Mr. Bird 09 says, y'all need an apparel sponsor, which I hope wasn't a shot at our clothes on whatever day it was. But it would be kind of cool to have an apparel sponsor for the show.
Duh. You can dress me out. Hey, I will proudly wear whatever you...
Hoffman Show. I've always thought that a Real Things, Real People Said in Real Microphones t-shirt would be kind of sweet.
Are you going to get it on the back or the front?
I think, like, you do a little microphone on the front, and then you could do, like, a big Real Things, or you could do, like, a microphone with some Real Things. I think that could be cool. And I said, like, hey, you got any ideas? And he mentioned a couple local businesses, and I happen to know the founder and the owner of one of them, so let me send a couple text messages. In the meantime, people are just going to have to settle, quote unquote, for some Take Command merch, because we have that now. It's actually available. You can go to Breaking Tea and search the 106.7 The Fan shop, and the Take Command merch is there. And if you want a huge discount, you can do us a solid if you're a Take Command listener. Don't do this just because you heard me do this and you want a discount on a shirt for a podcast you don't even listen to. But if you are a listener of Take Command, we would love to hear from you. We have a listener survey up at hoffmanshow.com/survey, and you can take that, and there is a discount code for the Take Command merch at the end. We got sweatshirts, we got hoodies, so go check that out. On our chat with Michael Phillips joked at the end of the interview, Anthony, that New Orleans is not much of a food town. We went on a whole bit about how we hope that someone wants to send us, and so Michael and I can go eat and also talk about football. Duh, jobs. But at Duncan Andretti says, LOL, did he say New Orleans is not much of a food town? Wow. Duncan, your sarcasmometer is broken.
Yeah. Gots to be.
You hate to see it. You hate to see it. And last but not least, Anthony, Black Health and Wealth Show saw our breaking news reaction to Mark Klaus, the new Commanders team president, and actually did like a TikTok, YouTube short, reel bit, and I used the picture of he and Josh Harris. And this person responded, he goes, Mark Klaus will be the Dan Quinn body double.
Oh, my gosh.
He's got the bald head. He's got the goatee situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that it's an exact.
He's way taller, though.
I don't know. Like, Josh Harris is not the tallest guy.
Well,
he looks super tall in that photo, but, like, is he just, like, 6'1", which, is tall, but he's not like he's 6'4". I think Josh Harris is just, like, 5'7".
Mark Klaus isn't 6'6"?
I don't know. Look it up.
I thought he was.
Look it up. If you can find Mark Klaus' height, I don't know why the CEO of the Campbell's company would have his height on the internet, but...
Yeah, that would be a little concerning. He's 5'11".
He just looks really tall because he's standing next to Josh Harris.
Hold on, he played basketball, right?
I think at West Point, yeah.
Yeah, he's 6'5".
Okay, well there you go. That would be why his height is on the internet, because he played basketball. But he played basketball a long time ago. All due respect.
Yeah, he's 6'5". He was a guard.
Yeah,
big guard.
Yeah, big. Dan Quinn body double. Dan's not 6'5". Dan's not short. Dan's a former D lineman. Dan's not a small dude, but he's not 6'5".
Nah.
That's the difference between basketball height and football height, boys and girls. 6'3", tall football player. Like, oh yeah, let's get a big 6'3" wide receiver. Short basketball player. Different deals. Speaking of hoops, we are here at Capital One Arena. That, by the way, is Never Read the Comments. Hope that you enjoyed it. Hey, that's Josh Robbins. Josh is going to sit down next to me, and we're going to talk about basketball next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980, where you see Josh Robbins from the Athletic Wizards beat reporter. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. I drove in this afternoon from Philadelphia. I covered a game there last night. Or at least I worked on some journalism stuff.
Did some journalism?
Did some journalism and ready to go.
Love it. Love it.
Go.
So the Wizards, unfortunately, Josh, they've lost a lot of basketball games in a row. They have lost 15 in a row. They had a 16-game losing streak last season to set the franchise record. They are now on the verge of breaking that or tying that in 2 consecutive years, the first 2 years of the Winger-Dawkins era. We knew in both of those seasons that it was going to be really hard to win basketball games. That is in part by design. But the fact that it has been this bad, does it really matter? Or when you're in an NBA rebuild, does the level of bad not matter while you're bad as long as you wind up good at the end?
Well, you better be in position to get a top pick. And you better reduce your odds to fall out of the top 5. And to do that, you have to have the absolute worst record. Now, whether that's the Wizards' intention to be so atrocious is unclear. I think it should be. But
it's easier for us to stay on the outside than those that have to live it and compete every day.
Put it this way, if you have the second worst record in the league, you have a 20% chance of drafting 6th. And if you're going to rebuild, you can't take that risk, in my opinion. You cannot take that risk of hitting 6th. But does it matter? Yes, it matters, particularly for your young players. So Bilal, Koulibaly, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington. Now, these are tough guys, but they're human too. And you don't want to expose your young players to habitual losing because it's demoralizing, it's corrosive. And we are potentially talking about, with the Wizards, seeing them do this not just this year, but next. That's the question. Can these 4 guys in particular emerge from this better, but if at least unscathed? And it's very tough to do that.
So I guess then the big question would be, what do they do about it? Because it's not like they're going to go trade for a great player. They're not going to sacrifice future resources for getting someone to help them right now. Are there things they can do with their rotation? I mean, obviously it would help if Brogdon could stay healthy and all these other things, but Kuzma staying healthy, right. Obviously they could play. It feels like they could play Jonas Valanciunas more. I feel like he might even have a positive plus-minus on the season. I feel like every box score I look at, it's like -10 for everybody except for Jonas, who's +3. So, do they have buttons they can push to eject themselves out of a funk like this, at least temporarily, before maybe returning into it and securing that top lottery odds?
At the moment, with Kispert, Kuzma injured, probably not. Probably not. The answer, though, I think is, let's just say Kuzma were healthy, Kispert were healthy, to really play those guys heavily and not play the young guys as much. Part of the reason why you play the young guys is so they grow. And so you're kind of cutting your nose off to spite your face. Is that the correct phrase?
Yeah.
So you'd accomplish one goal of winning a game, which for the long term probably isn't advisable. And you might hurt their confidence a little bit, just a little bit. I think they're going to continue to go in the direction of playing the young guys. Call it development and hope that they're going to have to make sure they develop them, but also lose games in the process.
Yeah. We're live at Capital One Arena here on the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. A herd of children has just gone by. I'm assuming they're part of some kind of entertainment that the folks will see here tonight. So if you heard a hullabaloo in the background, that is we just had a herd of young girls that look like they're going to go get ready to dance. So I don't know. Whenever that happens tonight, that'll be fun. So all kinds of reasons to come to the arena, Josh. You don't have to respond to that.
Yeah, I suppose, hey, all these arenas have some sort of ancillary entertainment.
It's better than just sitting there in silence in the breaks. Unless you're just like an old school, parquet floor, Boston, just give me the organ.
Sore subject there. I'm not a fan of the whole in-arena host vibe. No matter where it is.
Okay.
The Lakers seem to do just fine. The Mavericks seem to do just fine. The Celtics,
The Mavericks do have the Mavs men, though. They have a troop of 300-pound men who take their shirts off and play drums.
Well, I've never – that's news to me.
Oh,
now,
unless they got rid of the Mavs men. Back when I lived there a decade ago, the Mavs men were a staple.
I don't recall that. There was a portly gentleman in Philly who would take his shirt off near the media seating like one of the goals, and I can't unsee that.
I think this might be impacting your feelings on an arena host, perhaps. Okay, back to the Wizards. So we've described the conundrum, and I guess like if your choices are either you can not play your young guys and try to win games, or play your young guys and probably lose, but you need to do some amount of winning to not ruin the young guys. Like that seems like an unsolvable problem. So has there been some kind of strategic error made, or is this just kind of how it goes? And are you maybe thinking about other examples of the Thunder? You covered the Magic for a long time, so I know you've had an eye on their rebuild, like of teams that have done it well and maybe some other teams that have tried it and not done it well.
That's another great question, and it really is. So I covered 2 Magic rebuilds. The first one, they had a couple of veterans after they jettisoned J.J. Redick, Glenn Davis. Glenn Davis is not a good example. He was not a good influence on the young guys. They didn't have good enough veterans and enough of the veterans. Lately, the Magic's current rebuild has worked well, partly, not mostly, but partly because they have some good veterans there. Like Joe Ingles last year, Gary Harris has been there. Washington has good veterans. Malcolm Brogdon, Valanciunas this year, Kuzma to a lesser extent because he's only 28, 29.
Right.
Oklahoma City, you say, well, they were tanking for a year. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander turned out great. Well, by the way, they had Chris Paul there for a while.
By the way, this team could have kept Chris Paul last year. They obviously instead traded him for Jordan Poole, which I think talent-wise is the right decision, but they did have that option.
Chris didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
Not because partly because they were going to lose.
Right. He wanted to go somewhere. He's trying to get a ring.
That would be his preference. But he did not want to be all the way out east. That was another thing because his family's still now based in L.A.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, yes, if they had played hardball with Chris Paul, they could have forced him to play out the contract.
So I think the other thing I think about with those teams, and this is 100% a luck thing on the Wizards side, and like I don't put this at all on Will Dawkins or Michael Winger or anybody else. Like for the Magic when they popped, part of it was they got the guy, right? Paolo Banchero shows up and they take off. And they had a couple years that were rough before that, so maybe that actually is a good comparison. You know, the Thunder rebuild starts when they ship Paul George to L.A., they get Shai in return. Shai's the guy. This team, because of the way the drafts have fallen and where they've been in them, hasn't had a chance to get the guy. They were one ping pong ball away from Wembanyama, but instead they wind up down the lottery and they do what they did last year. This year they have the second pick. It's a historically unsuperstar-laden draft. We know that this year is the year where the guys are coming, multiple. Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey. There's some other prospects that a lot of folks in that space think could be potential superstars. So how much of this is just that there was no other path. They got stuck here because you are subject to the talent pool that is provided for you.
That's a big part of it. Yep. Could they have traded Brad the year before he re-signed? Like the February before he resigned.
That's going back to the Tommy Shepard era.
Well, he broke his wrist.
Yeah,
now, maybe something would have happened in the days before that deadline, but it became moot when he broke his wrist.
Right.
They held on to Brad too long in retrospect.
Of course.
They didn't have the right coach for that group of players whom they brought in. That was a tough group of players to coach for any first-time head coach. So when Michael Winger and Will Dawkins get here, the cupboard wasn't bare, but it was pretty close to bare. It was like my kitchen cupboard.
The kitchen cupboard of an NBA beat reporter during the season. Not home a lot.
This one, I don't want to go into that. But anyway, the roster and future assets, for the most part, were not managed well prior to the arrival of the new front office. Big problem. One of the reasons why the Magic's rebuild worked this time is that they moved their best player at his highest value. They moved Nikola Vucevic. They got 2 future first-round picks, one of whom became Franz Wagner. So they wound up drafting Suggs and Wagner in the same draft. And they still have, and then they wound up getting Jet Howard in the next draft, couple drafts down from that pick. So that's the difference. The Magic had the foresight to tear it down when they were merely lower-tier mediocre. The Wizards waited too long to do it. And by the way, they allowed Bradley Beal to have a no-trade clause.
Right.
Which further hampered it, although Beal was by that time a shadow of who he had been.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a limited number of suitors, and obviously that was even more limited by the teams that he was willing to go to. So it does really – I think that's illustrated for fans because I think after – I remember the night that Shepard got let go, and I think we wound up even going late on that show. Like, we were supposed to be done at 7. I was like, I'm not getting off the radio. Like, this happened at like 6:55. Like, we're coming back after the break, baby. Screw the national programming.
And they kept you on?
And they did, yeah.
That's some big-time power.
Actually, I think, Anthony, was that the night that CK worked the board for me?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, our program director, who had not been on the board in about 15 years, wound up staying and working the board for me that night. But I remember saying, like, I hope people understand now that the hole that this team is going to have to dig out of is gargantuan, and it's hard. And no matter who they bring in, like, if they blow it up, it is not going to be a quick, simple turnaround. And
Right.
So what I wanted to kind of double-check kind of through this conversation is that they're actually doing the right things, and that this is a much more of a confluence of circumstances rather than any error. Because, like, if I think of the headline of this conversation, right, we chop this up, we put it on YouTube, I have to pick a headline for it. Like, the headline could kind of be, have the Wizards done something wrong in their rebuild? The fact that they're sitting here on the verge of another 16-game losing streak. And it sounds like, no, they're just kind of in the midst of suboptimal circumstances, or is there something that you think they may have made a wrong turn at some point in these last 2 years specifically since Winger and Dawkins took over?
We're going to learn in the years ahead, and it's going to be several years from now because these guys are 19 and 20. Did they make the right draft picks? Now, I think Bilal is going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think they took a flyer on Alex Sarr, knowing that he was the best potential long-term prospect in a bad upper tier of a draft. Our conversation, because they're in the midst of this losing streak, has been a downer, I would think, for people listening.
Sure.
That's true. But the broader picture here is that for the first time in a long time, since before they had John Wall, this team is bottoming out and using a proven but risky strategy where they're not chasing meaningless wins like they had the last 4 years. This path is what so many of the fans wanted from the Wizards.
Yes.
And now they're doing it. You're right. So much of this comes down to luck, but maybe the most dangerous thing of all, is for them to somehow finish with the second worst record in the league instead of the worst record, and then a 1-in-5 chance they drop to 6 in a draft that might be a 5-player draft or a 4-player draft. So if that were to happen where they were to drop to 6 in this draft, now that would be a disaster.
Yeah. But also there would be nothing they could really do about it. Like, outside of, you should have lost more games, but we've already said that, like, even losing comes with risk because of the potential long-term hamperment of development for your young guys, who, by the way, most of whom have played on good teams and winning teams, and maybe a little bit less on the international scene, and in that way, like, who they've taken is a nice formula for this. But, like, I always think of guys that come out of winning programs in the NFL or the NBA and in college, or they come from college programs to those professional leagues, and they were high school state champions, and they've never lost. They haven't lost 15 games in their life, and the first 2 months in the NBA they lose 15 games. And you're like, what is this? And like, at least these guys have the international experience of being professionals or in professional environments that maybe they have a tougher exterior to some of that stuff than some of the college guys.
It's extraordinarily tough. Corey Kispert being an example. Now, Corey Kispert wasn't a high lottery pick, but he's someone who won wherever he went, particularly at Gonzaga. And then he's experiencing losing, not even at this level now, but it was tough for him with that.
Yeah.
Part of what makes all this tough is that in 2019, the league changed the lottery rules where if you have the 3 worst records, you have the same exact odds of going first, second, third, or fourth. And those odds are not that much better than the teams with the 5th, 6th, 7th worst record. The difference is that there is an incentive to be the very worst because it prevents you from potentially falling to 6 or worse. Again, this road is full of potholes, and it's not certain to work. And as a matter of fact, in many ways, it's at least a 50-50
right.
proposition that it's not going to work. But they're at least taking the steps they need to do, I think.
Yeah.
And it's going to involve a lot of misery.
Yeah.
A lot of misery.
And I go back to the conversation I had with Leonsis at the art gallery or the photography gallery down the street here. And he kind of looked at me during and he goes, "What do you want us to do?"
That's right.
And I was like, nothing different. And the unspoken part of that is what you said earlier, which is I wanted you to do this in 2018. I want you to do this in 2019. I want you to do this instead of trading for Russell Westbrook. Once the John Wall, Brad Beal pairing, and maybe I have my years wrong. Maybe it was 2021. But like once it was clear that the Wall Beal thing was done, when you trade John, when you end that era, just end the era. And I think that now you're seeing the repercussions of that decision, and because of decisions made subsequently to double down on the Beal-centric nature of things. This is not meant to like beat up on Brad. It just is what it is with the no trade clause, et cetera. Like I think now, if you didn't understand the depth of everything before and how deep the hole is, and how risky it then becomes to climb out of it because it involves this much losing. If you didn't get it then, you should get it now. And if you don't get it now, I got nothing for you.
You know, in 2018, 2019, it's much easier now for us to say with force, in hindsight, that they should have moved Brad. At that time, I don't think that was really realistic for them to do. It would, and I'm trying to think of a...
Well, it's kind of the Vooch thing, right? Like, Vooch was a borderline All-NBA third-team type of guy.
Brad's much better than Vooch. And how the Magic got that kind of value for him, credit to them.
Well, I think my pushback, my counter-argument would be simply the bar, and I think Michael and Will understand this, being around guys like Durant, right? And even though they didn't win, like they could have won with those OKC teams. And him and Russ at Russ's peak were like legitimately 5 best, 10 best players in the league. But the bar for being the best player on a championship team is so outrageously high.
Yes.
And like if you don't have that, it is worth pursuing that at all costs, which is what they're doing now. And so my counter argument for Beal, and I think 2018 is the year he made third-team All-NBA, is could you have traded him for 4 first-rounders?
Yes.
And known, like, hey, look, this is going to hurt in the short term. This guy's a great player. But he's a great player. That's why we're trading him, because for as great as he is, he's not that.
100. That's a great point. But let's also look at kind of the capital that the general managers at that time had, right? So Tommy Shepard comes in. Tommy Shepard chased that job. Like the majority of general managers who get hired, they chased him or he chased the job.
Yeah.
So he didn't have the capital to expend on a rebuild at that time, in my opinion. Whereas now the Wizards, they chased Michael Winger.
Right.
The Magic chased Jeff Weltman, the person who wound up trading Vucevic. So much of this comes down to the circumstances in which the key non-ownership decision maker comes into the job. And by the way, the Beal move that in retrospect would have been great for them that you've just described, I'm trying to think of some parallels. Certainly what the Thunder did was pretty close with George and Westbrook, although I think both of them were eager to kind of move on.
Right.
Another parallel, Blake Griffin with the Clippers. And by the way, who was one of the I believe Michael Winger was one of the executives at that time.
That is true.
Now, Blake Griffin wound up dropping off essentially a cliff. He was never. I mean, he really. I guess he had a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
But that's a move comparable to the one you, in retrospect, and would have been great for them.
I would say the Sixers too, and although they haven't won a title, like trading Iguodala and starting the process, I think is kind of the parallel that I would think of that had just happened at that time. That was 2015, I believe, was when they did that. So I don't know. This is what makes the NBA fun. It is fascinating. The transactions are so important. Hopefully, eventually, the basketball is fun again. It's going to be rough sledding tonight. Luka's back. He's coming off a 37-12 game. Kyrie is back. Those guys have been banged up. Clay is back. So going to be a tough one tonight for the Wiz against the Mavs here at Capital One Arena. But trying to keep the long term in view here. And Josh Robbins helping us do it. You can read his work in The Athletic. He's doing a great job reporting on all this stuff. He's had some really great stories on kind of this process as well. So, Josh, appreciate you, sir. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, man, thanks for the great questions.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about the Wiz with Dave coming up at 6:15. More of the Hoffman Show live from Capital One Arena next. the Hoffman Show. We are live from Capital One Arena outside Section 106, 107. So if you are on the way in, you can come say what's up. As always, please do so in a commercial break because I have tremendous ADD, and if you try to say hi to me during the show, I will lose my train of thought, and the show will come to a screeching halt. We also have a chance for you to win Wizards tickets by filling out a small little form here. It goes into a nice little raffle, so you don't just have to come by and say hi. You could, if you're coming to the game, clearly you like coming to the game, so you might as well come out, fill out the form, and you enter to win free Wizards tickets. So come by, do that. Talk a little Wiz, talk a little Commanders with me in the break if you want, and then we'll get back to doing the radio show. Just had Josh Robbins stop by if you're looking for some great Wizards talk, worth the rewind on the free Odyssey app. And coming up at 6:15, Dave Johnson will join us from his perch upstairs. It's always fun. Anthony, sometimes I look up when I'm talking to Dave. We're not doing it side by side. I'll just go, "Hey, Dave," because he's like up there.
Oh, he's not too far from you.
No, he's not. The broadcast booth, if I want to get there, is very easy. Also, there's a T-shirt giveaway tonight.
Ooh.
And it's like the light blue. I have a hot take, Anthony.
Uh-oh.
I think I've said this on the show before. I know I've put it on social media. The Wizards City Edition uniforms, the ones that they have this year, the light blues. And I'm saying this because I see all these people walking by with these light blue T-shirts that are in that colorway. Have you seen these uniforms?
I have not.
Oh, okay. I need you to Google Wizards 2024 City Edition uniforms right now. So I need you to be on the same page with me here as we talk about this. But I do believe they're wearing these uniforms.
Yep.
tonight.
I have seen them actually.
Yeah, the light blues.
Yeah.
I think this should be their permanent uniform.
Permanent?
Yes.
Okay. Explain.
I think the red, white, and blue motif is kind of played out with DC teams. I want something that is unique to each team. The Nationals kind of own the red. The Commanders are obviously the burgundy and gold. And the Caps have their version of the red, obviously. They rock the red famously. And I think that the name Washington Wizards, right, which we all understand the history of that name, speaking of rebranding controversies from the Bullets in the 90s, if you think of like a color of like a magician, because that's what they're called the Wizards. I didn't pick it. I think it is that light blue like kind of speaks to that branding. I think it feels kind of magical. And I just think it's a way better uniform, a way better color scheme. It's way more distinct and individual than a generic like, oh, we call them the Washington Wizards and they are in the District of Columbia, so we're going to make the team colors red, white, and blue.
That's fair. I like it. I think, especially going based off like what we were in the 2000s, where we had
the blue.
Own. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was at least, again,
that was
blue
very
and gold
unique
is
too.
like more wizardy. That was distinctive. And then they changed the color scheme a couple years ago. And I think he did an amazing job. Honestly, I also really liked it. It felt very not like the team, but if they were going to change it, then fine. The Boundary Stone colors from last year, I think, are sweet. I almost wore my Boundary Stone hoodie, or not hoodie, beanie that they gave out last year when we were doing one of these shows. I think that the light blue is sick, and I think that they should permanently change the colors to that. Metal Chris is not. Chris, you want to pop on your mic? Chris, why do you not support this?
So I like the ones last year better. I'll give you that. But this year, I mean, it's Tar Heels, UNC, Carolina Blue. Like, no. That's not our brand. That's another brand already that ain't us.
There's other teams.
And UNC's too close. It'd be one thing, you're like, they're on the other side of the country or whatever. It's like, no, they're like a state away, man. Like, no.
I don't know. Like, the Chargers also have the powder blues, and like those.
But they're on the other side of the country.
They're considered the best uniforms in sports.
But they're on the other side. I don't know about that either. But they're on the other side of the country. Let them do whatever they want on the West Coast. Carolina Blues are taken out here. I don't know. I don't like it.
It's also
not for our team. Not for our team.
The combination of like the blue and the black and the way that this particular uniform set goes. It does. I never even thought about it as Carolina Blue until you said that.
I mean, that's what it always looks like to me.
It has like some of the
blue.
red trim on it and everything.
I just see UNC all over it when I look. Like, looks like Tar Heels. So I don't know.
Anthony, does Metal Chris's opinion change your opinion at all?
No.
Okay, so 2-1, democracy rules. Official vote coming. We're changing the uniforms. Anthony and I are in charge now. I'm I'm hopefully talking to Michael Winger next week. This is the number one option. This is now the number one thing on the to-do list.
What do you think Dave will weigh in on?
Dave won't care.
Okay.
Dave's famously not a fashion or an arts guy. I ask him every single year what he wants his intro song to be, and he goes, "I don't know. You pick it. Make me cool." That's the Dave Johnson special. Make me cool. All right. So now that we've got that not sorted out, today, breaking news, not really breaking, but broke earlier today. Bobby Wagner is the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Commanders. Obviously one of the NFL's most prestigious awards. It is awarded each year to one player from around the league. Each team gets a nominee for their work in the community. Terry McLaurin was the team's nominee last year. Charles Leno previously for a lot of the work that he did. They have had great guys doing great work and all around the league. It's really cool, actually, last year when I was at the Super Bowl out in Las Vegas to see all the Walter Payton Man of the Year guys walking around, and you just realize how many, look, the NFL's got 1,000 players. There's good dudes, there's bad dudes, but man, are there a lot of good dudes who, these guys are paid very well, and they pour a lot back into their communities. And Bobby specifically has done a lot of great work in multiple communities where he has lived and worked over the years, including a lot of work with mental health, a lot of work, on some big social justice issues and criminal justice reform. Like, he has attacked things that are both on a very personal level to people and also a more systemic societal level. So, a a tremendously deserving nomination for Bobby. Congratulations to him on that, and he will move forward to be one of the finalists who could get awarded the league-wide award, which you get awarded on the NFL Honors Night during Super Bowl week. So Bobby, following in the footsteps on the field and off the field of London Fletcher, who, of course, Washington great, should be in the Hall of Fame, one of the very best to ever do it. And I was really fortunate, Anthony, to this weekend be in the Commanders' locker room when Bobby was asked about tying Fletch's record. They are now the only two players in NFL history to have over 100 tackles in 13 straight seasons. 13 straight. That is, as Ben Standig looked at Bobby, he goes, "Hey, man, that's a lot of tackles." And Bobby's like, "Yeah, you're telling me." And watching Bobby answer the question that you're about to hear about what it means to get that award or or reach that milestone with the history that he had, that I don't think a lot of us really fully appreciated with London Fletcher in this particular uniform, I thought this was a really cool moment that I was fortunate enough to be there for on Sunday in the Commanders' locker room.
Normally, it's I try to play it off, but looking at that guy across, it means something because I specifically remember. He said it was 2014. I don't remember, but I reached out to him randomly. Wasn't sure if he was gonna respond. Wasn't sure if he was just gonna. I wasn't sure. I never met him, but I knew of his game obviously, and I kind of just cold called him. And he was so gracious with his time. He spoke to me on the phone for a long time. He answered every question that I had. Gave me so much advice, and kept in contact. So anytime I reached out to him about anything, he was very gracious with his time. And so it means something different being able to put this jersey on and look across and see him because he's a product of me being able to do that. And I'm chasing his record. So it's really cool. I think he doesn't get as much love as he should get for his career and what he was able to accomplish. And I definitely feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame. And so we should make that happen sooner rather than later.
It's Bobby Wagner in the Commanders' locker room on Sunday, and I think you could hear it in his voice, but I'm telling you, to be standing right there and as he's answering that question, he is looking across the locker room at London Fletcher. He is looking at Fletch, who's doing his radio job with Bram, doing the post-game interviews, and to just see kind of the – we think of Bobby as the old guy now because he is the old guy now. That's the nature of being in your mid-30s in the league and playing 13 years like Wagner has, a guy who certainly is going to get his gold jacket sooner rather than later upon retiring. And just to see kind of that adulation, that adoration, and we've seen it throughout sports this is, one thing that just like popped into my head is like when people who are the current heroes meet their heroes. And earlier this year, Caitlin Clark met Maya Moore, and like watching her glow, just like kind of freak out. The NBA 75 a couple years ago when Michael Jordan walked into the room and like all the players that came after MJ are like, oh my God, that's MJ. And to see that kind of childlike almost sparkle in Bobby's eye and the adoration that he had for Fletch across the room as he's talking about him was something that I won't soon forget. And so with the news today that Bobby Wagner is getting the nomination for Walter Payton Man of the Year, I wanted to play that sound for you and let you hear it here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back here on the Team 980s, we're broadcasting live from Capital One Arena. We head upstairs. Dave Johnson joins us live. One, we'll ask him the uniform question. Should the Wizards switch permanently to their City Edition uniforms? And two, we'll talk about if the Wizards can somehow, some way, pull off a miracle tonight, beat a full-strength Mavs team, and end their 15-game losing streak. It is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, live from Capital One Arena. I am downstairs in the concourse on the 100 level outside 106, 107. And in the broadcast booth upstairs is the one and only voice of the Washington Wizards, Dave Johnson. Dave-O, how we doing, sir?
Listen, Craig, my feelings are hurt as I'm a listener to the Hoffman Show, and as when you were talking about the City Edition uniforms, which were debuting tonight, you pointed out that Dave doesn't know anything about fashion and arts. He won't care.
That's not what I said, Dave. I didn't say you didn't know anything. I said you're not a fashion and arts guy because every time I ask you about these things, you push off the answer. You say you don't have opinion. So I was merely reflecting your stated position. However, if you would like to change your stated position, if you have strong feelings on the City Edition uniforms, I would love to hear them.
Well, and by the way, kudos to you on excellent journalism, because that is the exact quote. And see, that's the difference between a journalist and a play-by-play announcer. I don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, but you were right there with the exact quote. So that's for our listeners out there. That's the difference you can share with your kids. And Metal Chris, right? He was talking about
Metal Chris is down here. Yep.
Yes, and he was worried about the influence because it's light blue. And saying it seems to be like North Carolina, and I get that, but I also think if it was blue, light blue, with just white, then right away that would say North Carolina. But no, I believe that it's a nice color of blue. It's a change, and you mix it in with the red, it still feels different than certainly Carolina blue. And listen, this is what these alternate uniforms. I keep saying, we slip into saying alternative, which makes it sound like it's a style of rock music.
Right.
Alternate uniforms that every team in the league is displaying, and it often has different colors. Now, students of geography and city flags will note that this has a little Chicago feel to it.
Chicago
does
a little bit.
The light, and I thought about that as we were just in Chicago practicing at the University of Illinois Chicago. But this is what happens where we live in a world, and it tells you it's a wonderful world. We have a special City Edition court that I'm looking at to go with the City Edition uniforms, not to be confused with the NBA Emirates Cup court. And I asked somebody about this today because when you think about it, we had 2 home games in the NBA Emirates Cup. And so that court was used for 2 games, but to the Wizards' credit, they repurposed their Emirates Cup court to be used out in Las Vegas, as now they have a kind of training center out in Las Vegas. As you know, the Las Vegas Summer League is such a big part of the NBA ecosystem.
I do remember last year hearing about that, and then asking someone who was in the media, I was like, well, can you guys then go play? Like, if you're out there covering the team, could you at least play pickup on the court when they're not using it? And I was told that answer is no. And that's, Dave, I think the only reason I'm not going to go to Summer League this year. It's not the money. It's not the trip. It's not going to Las Vegas in July where the weather is just lovely. It's because I can't play pickup on the fancy Emirates Cup court.
No, and to our younger listeners, and by younger I mean anyone under 30, which I know you have most of, is why this is so incredulous to me is gather around story time with Dave. Once upon a time,
story time with Dave is my favorite.
Well, arenas just had one basketball court, and they shared it with whatever college team. So you could see a 3-point tape and a college tape, or sometimes the only thing they would change, and I would watch them do this, they would remove the tape of let's say the NBA 3-point, and then remeasure and do the tape for the college 3-pointer. But now, bring in the forklifts, and again, people I'm sure know this, but for those that don't, because some might not know, when a basketball court at an arena is put together like a jigsaw puzzle. There's lots of pieces that interlock to form the hardwood that these teams play on. So it's always quite a process, especially when they're trying to do the changeover, for example, here at Capital One from the basketball court to ice hockey. The minute the game is over, because the ice hockey floor, as you know, is always down, they start pulling apart the basketball court, and if you're in the way of a forklift, you better get out of the way.
Yep, you got to get cleared out. They got to get the court ready, and then Dave, we do have to play some basketball tonight. The Wizards are taking on a Mavericks team that is playing some pretty good ball. They're in the top half of the playoff picture in the Western Conference. Luka just coming off a 37-12 game his last time out earlier this week after he had missed some time with injury. Klay Thompson on the mend as well. He was on a minutes restriction last time out, and so we'll see how much he plays tonight. Kyrie's playing good ball. But this Wizards team obviously is headed the other direction. They've on this 15-game losing streak, and to add injury to insult, they lost a couple of guys last game or had some players leave. So where are we at tonight with the Wiz in terms of their health, and then how do they possibly pull off this upset?
Well, if this was your idea of a pep talk, you failed miserably, but thanks for bringing up those things.
Dave, I'm just trying to do the journalism. I will let you try to tell a better story to flip your previous comments right back on their head.
Right. I thought my story time with Dave was great, but you kick up with the journalism stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, the bottom line is, and by the way, it was very kind of you to say the Mavericks are a pretty good team. They won 9 of 10, and they also were like 4-1 without Luka, which is pretty incredible. So, look, and by the way, it was nice of Luka to come back this week for our trip to
thanks,
DC.
pal.
And by the way,
fella.
If anybody thinks the NBA doesn't have a sense of humor, before I forget about this, of course, we did not make it out of the group stage of the NBA Leagues Cup. Neither did Cleveland, neither did Boston. So what does the NBA do? We have 2 games that have been added to the schedule, and it's Cleveland and Boston. Thank you very much, NBA. But look, this is for the Wizards tonight. There will be Malcolm Brogdon. That certainly will help. No Keyshawn George, no Corey Kispert, no Kyle Kuzma. Once again, which I might be now repeating what you just said. I apologize for that.
No, it was looking for the update. So that's the good and the bad. Good, Brogdon's playing. The other 3 are out.
Look, the Wizards, the last 2 games, I looked this up, and they could have, would have, should have. Could have beat the Milwaukee Bucks the other night, had their 3-point shooting. That game was a fourth quarter game, and it came down to 3 points shooting. The other night against Cleveland, it's not that the Wizards, if you look over especially the middle 2 quarters, it was basically a tie game. But again, all 4 quarters count. The Wizards got smacked in the mouth, and I'll give you an example. The Cavaliers came out 7 of 10 shooting beyond the arc, while the Wizards were 0 of 11. If the Wizards are going to beat the Dallas Mavericks realistically tonight, they can't go 4 for 26 again from 3-point distance like they did Tuesday in Cleveland. Or Monday, whenever we were in Cleveland. I've lost track. The bottom line is, with the Wizards, to have success, look, this team can play defense, and they've shown that. They have to defend without fouling. The Mavericks do get to the free throw line, and that's a problem. So that's a challenge tonight. But the Wizards, they need a night where that somebody gets hot from beyond the arc. Now, I just mentioned Corey Kispert and Kyle Kuzma out, along with Keyshawn George, all guys that can make 3-pointers. So I just talked my way out of making a strong case for winning tonight. But look, no maybes. It's going to be a challenge. Luka Doncic, generational player. Kyrie Irving, a special player. So it's why you tune in, hopefully, and why you watch. Maybe sync up with the audio and TV or whatever you plan to do tonight, because, again, there's no script. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is, look, where the Wizards are right now, you don't take anybody for granted, and you don't say, well, we can beat this team. Every game is a challenge, but especially tonight. And there's just no ifs, ands, and buts about it. If the Wizards are able to have everything go right tonight, it would be a headline story tomorrow morning.
No doubt about it. They're going to need, obviously, a big night from Jordan. They're going to need a big night from all of their shooters. And I think the big thing is they're going to need, it's a make-or-miss league, as they say. So challenge every single one of Dallas' shots, make it as hard as possible, and we'll see where the chips lie at the end of the night. Dave on the call upstairs. If Dave's up there, say hi, Dave. And then we'll be down here for another 15 minutes or so before we give way to Dave and Glenn on the radio. Dave, always appreciate it, sir. And I think that's all for this week. We'll talk to you next week.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Craig.
All right, that is Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back here on the Team 980, of course, your home for Washington Wizards basketball, we will wrap up the show with a Thursday edition of Real Things Real People Said into Real Microphones. Wrapping up here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, live at Capital One Arena. 15 minutes from now, we send things upstairs to Dave Johnson and company for coverage of tonight's game, pregame, and then it is Mavs and Wiz here on the Team 980. You can also listen to that game and every Wizards game live on the free Odyssey app. There you can check out our show live, Chris Russell, Kevin Sheehan, and the podcasts as well, including Take Command, the podcast that I do with Logan Paulson. Robert Mays was our guest today from the Athletic Football Show. He was awesome. It's been up on YouTube, and obviously that podcast has been out today in general, and people really, really liked hearing Robert. Even people that listen to him all the time are like, wow, it was really cool to hear Robert getting interviewed as opposed to just being the interviewer. So if you want to dive into Robert Mays' knowledge, definitely check out Take Command. All right, Anthony, tonight, Thursday Night Football, Lions-Packers, a banger of a game. And by the way, it's real football. It's not Thursday Night Football nonsense where these teams are playing on 4 days rest. Both these teams played on Thanksgiving. They're on a full regular rhythm, full week of rest. Who you got tonight, Lions and Packers?
So my best friend is a Packers fan, and I asked him, are you guys going to win today? I have to make a very important pick today. And he basically said they're going to win out the rest of the season. The Eagles will have the 1 seed in the NFC. And Craig, I think I believe him.
How good is this person at picking games and being good at judging their own team?
He's not like I would say he's not super biased. Like he'll keep it a stack. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
If his team sucks, he'll say we're going to lose this game. If he believes they're going to win, and they should have won the first matchup, but
coulda, woulda, shoulda. The Lions haven't lost a game since September.
Yeah, but I think they're due, Craig. They are banged up defensively. Granted, their offense is still highly potent, but I think the Packers will have something to say about it today. I think they play keep away. I think they go out here, they get the dub.
This game's in Detroit.
It is.
It's indoors.
It is.
No elements to deal with.
That's right.
My only reservation on the Lions is they aren't actually the Lions anymore on defense. Like, they have so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're missing 7 starters from week 1. Now,
7 is crazy.
Now, one that they still have is Brian Branch, who is sleeper defensive player of the year in the NFL, the way he's done. If they ever decide to not give it to a pass rusher, Brian Branch is going to be right up there. But offensively, like, they're still them. Offensively, they are mostly still the same Detroit Lions that have put up 50 multiple times this year, that have absolutely smashed every person in their path. I think they're probably a little ticked off at themselves about letting Chicago back into the game last week in the first place. But there is a little bit of due theory, and the injury thing is kind of stuck in my craw. Earlier in the week on the First Impression Selection Show on YouTube on Monday, I did pick the Packers to cover because it's pretty easy to just go, hey, at that point it was 3.5. It's now down to 3, which is a big hook. And it's a division game. Like, it's going to be close. Picking them outright's a different deal. Jordan Love has not turned the ball over as much. Anthony, am I talking myself into this?
I think you are, Craig. I think you are.
The problem is the gap's pretty big. Give me the Lions.
You're going a season sweep for the Lions over the Packers?
Yeah, I think I am.
I don't know. It's a divisional game. It's Thursday, Craig. You also got to keep that up. It's Thursday.
But the Thursday night thing doesn't matter as much because they're on a week's rest. Like, Thursday night football is funky and not real NFL football because teams don't have time to do a full game plan and all that.
You're right.
This is, one, it's divisional opponents, so they know them very, very well. Matt LaFleur's going to be in his bag because Matt LaFleur stays in his bag. But, like, it's a full week. They both played last Thursday. I'm going Detroit. I'm just taking the home team.
I've given you a chance, Craig, to change your stance.
What you're doing is wasting time that we could be spending listening to real things real people said in real microphones. Because I'm not changing it. I'm taking the Detroit Lions.
All right.
We'll see how that goes for me tomorrow. We'll pick the rest of the NFL games tomorrow as well. Also, little breaking news note, Anthony. You see this one? You see the Belichick news?
I did not.
Apparently,
yeah, I did.
Bill Belichick. He's a football coach who kind of mumbles a lot. Just, he's very smart. He's won a lot of Super Bowls. And I don't know how well this is actually playing in the arena here, but hopefully it plays well on the radio and people get the joke. He's been talking to the University of North Carolina about their head coaching job. So they're going to move on from Mac Brown. Hold on. Mac Brown, football coach. Mac Brown was 73 years old. Bill Belichick is 72. That's who we want to coach our college kids. We want a 72-year-old.
He is younger. Just saying, Craig.
He is younger.
Yes.
Anthony, can't argue with that one.
You can't.
That's a real thing a real person said into a real microphone. Let's hear some other things.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All righty. Haven't done this in a while. We've been having short shows and full breaking news and all kinds of stuff. Real things, real people said in real microphones. We find the best sound that we can find from the world of sports and beyond. We play it for you for laughs, giggles, and whatever else we want at the end of the show. Anthony, when I'm on the road somewhere, you get to drive the car. Please don't crash. What do we got first?
First up, we have Rich Eisen. He had Jeffrey Wright on his show.
Oh, yeah. Big Commanders fan, Jeffrey Wright. I believe that's what they talked about.
Yes. And basically they just talked about where they are with their fandom now that we have new ownership.
How does it feel to be the fan of a team that's gotten ownership right?
Yes.
That's gotten the front office right?
Yes.
That's gotten the coach right?
Yes.
And it's gotten the quarterback right.
Oh, yeah. It feels good. Long time coming. Somebody asked me, how do you translate for the team to be where it is now for someone who's not a sports fan? And I think you put it like this. You had a long friend that you absolutely adore. And that friend's been in a coma. 2 decades. And finally woke up. And you're throwing the ball again together. I think it starts, really, and I don't think it can be overstated. It starts at the top. And it just shows you what strong, smart, respectful leadership means to a franchise. Tells you how abysmal the leadership had been. They just destroyed the franchise. But Josh Harris, he's doing the right things. I've known him since I was a kid, but don't want to, blow smoke. But I think it starts at the top.
It's like your friend was in a coma and now you're throwing a football together. What a line.
Yeah.
Also,
that's a bar.
I do think Rich Eisen's a Jets fan, so he's probably asking for his own knowledge. He's like, what's it like? Because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's an aspirational ask from Rich Eisen.
Have the Jets been that bad for that long?
I mean, they went to back-to-back AFC title games with Mark Sanchez in 2011 and 2012, I think it was.
Yeah, they had some.
And that's the highlight of their franchise this century.
That is a little brutal.
Yeah, and the entire time they were just getting dump trucked by Tom Brady.
I hate that for them.
I don't. They deserve it because they have a bad owner.
Yes.
What else we got in the folder?
Next up,
good sound.
We had Charles Barkley.
Oh boy,
taking a shot at Shaquille O'Neal on NBA on TNT.
Hold on. Coaching, instructing somebody to do it, and giving somebody and taking away confidence, two different things.
But switching them up.
Can't no coach give me or take away my confidence. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Akeem did that.
No, he didn't.
I will say this: the only player.
Man, a lot of shots. Yeah. Jabara, you, him.
In case you missed that was Chuck going to Shaq. Hakeem, as in Hakeem Olajuwon, did that. That's funny. Shaq, I don't actually know how good Shaq's confidence is, Anthony. I think at times he comes off as very insecure.
I think he is.
I think it's a false bravado sometimes. If I'm going to psychoanalyze Shaq, would I want to say that to his 7-foot tall face? Absolutely not.
Hell no.
but sometimes it comes off as very, very insecure.
I think a lot of professional athletes can come off that way.
I think so, but also, like, imagine Shaq's life. He's just walking around, being 7 feet tall, being looked at all the time. Like, oh, you're Shaq. By the way, did you see the announcement from the Wizards? Shaq's going to be here in April. I think it's April, maybe it was March. Performing as DJ Diesel after the Magic game.
Oh, my gosh. Are you going?
I don't know. I feel like we should now broadcast live that one and have Shaq come say what's up. We could have Shaq.
Diesel.
Can we plug a DJ set into this? Could we have Shaq DJ a live set for us on the radio? Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. We
can make that happen. We could do that.
Okay, Metal Chris is like, this is something that I am ready for. Chris has been waiting for this moment because he's got a great music radio background. Now he's in sports radio. This is the moment that he has been waiting for, the crossover event of the century. Yeah, DJ Diesel, a.k.a. Shaq, is going to be performing here after the Magic game in, I think, March.
That's dope, then.
Yeah.
I really got to get out to a Wizards game, man.
Yeah. You want to do a class field trip?
Craig, what I really want to do, yes, I do want to do a class field trip, but I need to see LeBron James. He plays in January here in the nation's capital.
Okay. Remind me in 50 seconds when the show's over to tell you who to email at the station to see if those tickets are still available, because we have tickets to every game. You know that, right?
I don't know what to do right now, Craig.
You don't do your hands. Also, Anthony, we know people. Look, I'm not saying we abuse our powers, but
yes,
if you want to go to the Lakers game, bro, we'll get you to the Lakers game.
I'm about to cry.
He actually, I think, is about to cry. Like, Anthony, tell me the date. We're there.
I think it's January 31st. Oh my gosh!
I almost just played a cruel joke on Anthony. Like, oh, sorry, I'm not available that day. But he's having
January 30th.
Okay,
January 30th.
All right, we'll make it happen. Show's over in 10 seconds, so I would say thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everyone for staring at me like a zoo animal here at Capital One Arena. Hey, and we'll see you tomorrow.